In May 1945, Germany wasn't just defeated, it was erased. Imagine standing in what used to be Berlin, Hamburg, or Dresden and seeing nothing but endless rubble stretching to the horizon. Cities that once thrived with industry, culture, and millions of people were now graveyards of shattered concrete and twisted steel. Over 20% of all housing was destroyed. Factories are silent. Roads are impassable. Bridges collapsed. This wasn't just the end of a war. This was the end of everything. Millions of refugees wandered through the ruins, searching for family members who might never be found, searching for food that didn't exist, searching for any reason to believe that tomorrow could be different from today. The German currency, the Reichsmark, was worthless paper. People traded cigarettes for bread, watches for potatoes. Children scavenged through rubble for anything they could sell or eat. Inflation spiraled so wildly that a wheelbarrow full of cash couldn't buy a loaf of bread. Black markets became the only markets. Trust was gone. Hope was gone. The nation that had once been one of Europe's industrial powerhouses was now divided into 4 occupation zones controlled by the United States, Britain, France, and the Soviet Union. Germany as a unified country ceased to exist. But here's what nobody expected. Within just 2 decades, this devastated wasteland would transform into one of the world's most powerful economies. How does that happen? How does a nation go from absolute zero to global dominance? The answer isn't magic, and it isn't luck. It's a combination of bold economic decisions, geopolitical pressure, cultural transformation, and a population desperate enough to work for a future they could barely imagine. Let's start with the impossible choice the Allied powers faced in 1945. Some leaders, particularly those who remembered the devastation of World War I and the rise of Nazi Germany, wanted to ensure Germany could never wage war again. The Morgenthau Plan, proposed by U.S. Treasury Secretary Henry Morgenthau Jr., even suggested dismantling Germany's industrial capacity entirely and turning it into an agricultural society. Strip the factories, remove the machinery, make it impossible for Germany to rebuild military power. But by 1947, the world had changed. The Cold War was beginning. The Soviet Union was expanding its influence across Eastern Europe. Communist parties were gaining strength in France and Italy. And Western leaders realized something crucial. A weak, starving, desperate Germany would be vulnerable to Soviet influence. Economics became geopolitics. If West Germany collapsed into chaos, the entire Western European defense against communism would crumble. So the calculation shifted. A stable, prosperous Germany became essential for Western security. In June 1947, U.S. Secretary of State George Marshall announced the Marshall Plan, a massive economic aid program to rebuild Europe. Over the next 4 years, Western Europe received over $13 billion in aid, equivalent to roughly $150 billion today. Germany received a significant share, but money alone doesn't rebuild a nation. Germany needed something deeper, a new economic system, a new identity, a new vision. And that transformation began with one radical decision on June 20, 1948. Overnight, the currency changed. The worthless Reichsmark was replaced by the Deutsche Mark. Every person received 40 new Deutsche Marks. Savings were converted at a rate that wiped out most wealth. Prices were freed from controls. Black markets collapsed instantly because suddenly there was real money with real value. And then something extraordinary happened. Shop shelves that had been empty for 3 years suddenly filled with goods. Merchants who had been hoarding products, waiting for a currency that actually meant something, brought everything out. It was as if the economy had been switched off for years and someone finally hit the power button. But this wasn't accidental. This was the result of a bold economic vision crafted by Ludwig Erhard, the man who would become known as the father of the German economic miracle. Erhard believed in something revolutionary, that prosperity required freedom. Not the kind of unregulated capitalism that had caused the Great Depression, and not the kind of central planning that was suffocating East Germany under Soviet control. Erhard proposed a third way, the social market economy. Free markets, but with social responsibility. Competition, but with fairness. Growth, but with stability. It was neither purely American capitalism nor Soviet communism. It was uniquely German. and it would change everything. Factories began reopening. Workers returned from prisoner-of-war camps and started rebuilding their skills. Refugees from the East, though traumatized and displaced, brought labor, determination, and a fierce will to survive. Investment started flowing in, both from the Marshall Plan and from German entrepreneurs who saw opportunity in the ruins. But the real engine of growth was cultural. Germans embraced discipline, precision, and efficiency not as slogans but as survival tools. Every hour of work mattered because there was so much to rebuild. Every innovation mattered because competition was returning. Every export mattered because foreign currency meant Germany could import the raw materials it desperately needed. This wasn't about national pride, this was about survival. And survival became the fuel for one of history's greatest economic transformations. Meanwhile, the Cold War was intensifying. In 1948, the Soviet Union blockaded West Berlin, trying to force the Western Allies out. The Berlin Airlift, where American and British planes delivered supplies to 2 million Berliners for nearly a year, became a symbol of Western determination. And it reinforced a critical reality. West Germany's success was essential to Western security, so doors opened that would have remained closed. In 1955, West Germany joined NATO, becoming a full partner in the Western Alliance. In 1957, it became a founding member of the European Economic Community, the organization that would eventually become the European Union. Integration brought stability. Stability brought investment. Investment brought growth. And growth brought something even more valuable: confidence. Between 1950 and 1960, West Germany's industrial production tripled. Exports soared. Unemployment dropped to some of the lowest levels in Europe. The world started calling it the Wirtschaftswunder, the economic miracle. But miracles don't happen in a vacuum. The Korean War in 1950 created massive global demand for industrial goods, and Germany was perfectly positioned to supply them. Its factories had been rebuilt with modern equipment. Its workforce was skilled and motivated. Its costs were lower than those of Britain or France. Suddenly, German products were flooding international markets. The Volkswagen Beetle became a symbol of affordable, reliable transportation. German machine tools became the backbone of global manufacturing. German chemicals, electronics, and precision instruments became synonymous with quality. But here's what made Germany different from other post-war recoveries. The social market economy created a system where prosperity was shared, not hoarded. Workers had strong unions and co-determination rights, meaning they had representation on corporate boards. Companies couldn't just maximize short-term profits. They had to consider long-term stability and social responsibility. Wealth was reinvested into infrastructure, education, and research, and this created a virtuous cycle. Workers had income to spend. Spending created demand. Demand drove production. Production created jobs. Jobs created more income. The economy grew, but it grew in a way that benefited society broadly, not just elites. Meanwhile, just across the border, East Germany told a completely different story. Under Soviet control, East Germany followed central planning, state ownership of industries, production quotas set by bureaucrats, political repression of dissent. While West Germany surged ahead, East Germany struggled with shortages, inefficiency, and stagnation. Its citizens fled to the West whenever they could. By 1961, over 3 million had escaped. The contrast became so embarrassing that the East German government built the Berlin Wall. Not to keep people out, but to keep them in. One side symbolized freedom and prosperity. The other symbolized control and decline. The wall wasn't just concrete and barbed wire. It was an economic symbol, a political statement, and a moral divide. And it would stand for 28 years. But even as West Germany prospered, the miracle faced its first major test in 1973. The oil crisis hit. Energy prices quadrupled almost overnight. Industries that depended on cheap fuel struggled. Production slowed. Inflation rose. Unemployment, once almost unthinkable in post-war West Germany, began climbing. For a nation that had grown accustomed to continuous success, this was a wake-up call. But Germany's response revealed something important about its economic DNA. Instead of panicking, it adapted. Companies invested in energy-efficient technologies. Workers accepted shorter hours to avoid mass layoffs. The government introduced policies to stabilize the economy without abandoning the principles of the social market system. It wasn't easy, but it worked. Germany weathered the storm better than many of its neighbors. And in the process, it discovered a new strength, resilience. The 1980s brought another challenge: global competition. Japan, South Korea, and other emerging economies were producing cars, electronics, and machinery faster and cheaper. The question loomed: could Germany maintain its edge in a world that was no longer rebuilding but accelerating? The answer came from innovation. German companies doubled down on quality, precision, and long-term engineering. Instead of chasing low-cost production, they focused on high-value manufacturing. Instead of mass-market goods, they specialized in advanced machinery, chemicals, and automobiles that required expertise few could match. This shift was cultural as much as economic. Germany embraced a model built on apprenticeships, skilled labor, and deep technical knowledge. Young people entered vocational programs that blended classroom learning with real-world training. Engineers became national heroes. And the Mittelstand, the network of small and medium-sized family businesses, became the backbone of the economy. These companies, often hidden from the public eye, produced world-leading products in niche markets. They exported to every corner of the globe. They reinvested profits into research, workers, and communities. And they embodied a simple but powerful idea: long-term thinking beats short-term gains. Then, in 1989, history shifted again. The Berlin Wall fell. Crowds surged through checkpoints. Families reunited. A nation split for 40 years stood together. But unity brought a massive challenge: how to merge two completely different economic systems. East Germany's industries were outdated, inefficient, and uncompetitive. Its currency was weak. Its infrastructure was decades behind. Reunification wasn't just political, it was an enormous economic gamble. West Germany poured hundreds of billions into rebuilding the East. Roads, factories, schools, and homes were modernized. But the transition was brutal. State-owned enterprises collapsed under competition. Unemployment in the East soared. Frustration grew. Critics wondered if the miracle had finally reached its limit. But Germany held on to its core principles: stability, responsibility, and long-term vision. Investments continued. Training programs expanded. And slowly, painfully, the East began recovering. The 1990s weren't about miracles, they were about endurance. And endurance shapes nations more deeply than easy success. By the early 2000s, reunified Germany faced another crisis. Growth slowed. Unemployment rose. Critics called it the sick man of Europe. The labor market was rigid. The welfare system was strained. Germany needed transformation again. The answer came through painful reforms. The Hartz reforms in the mid-2000s reshaped the labor market, encouraged employment, and modernized social systems. They were controversial and politically costly, but they worked. Slowly, the economy recovered. Then came 2008. The global financial crisis shook the world. Banks collapsed. Markets crashed. But Germany, with its focus on real production rather than speculative finance, weathered the storm better than most. Its manufacturing base proved resilient. While others struggled, Germany became the stabilizer of Europe. Today, Germany stands as one of the world's strongest economies not because it avoided hardship but because it learned from it. The journey from 1945 to now wasn't a miracle. It was a blueprint for resilience, reinvention, and responsibility. And as the world faces new uncertainties, Germany's story offers a powerful truth. Even in the darkest moments, rebuilding is possible, renewal can emerge, and nations are defined not by their failures but by their recoveries.